Hey guys, welcome to the drawing stream tonight. If you're able to give me a sound check over there on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, I would appreciate it, whichever one you're watching on. I think we'll go ahead and continue with the background a little bit. All right. So we started this last night and go ahead and work some more on it. So, by way of reminder, or if this is the first time you're watching the live stream, um, so we're doing this in colored pencil, and by definition of what some define as colored pencil, and I agree with this definition, I'm using Inktense pencils. So the Derwent Inktense line. Hey, Salmia, how are you? Glad you're here tonight. Hope you're doing well. The Inktense pencils are colored pencil because they come in a solid, dry form encased in wood. So we are putting on, the background, and it's a water soluble type of medium, and so I'm using water on it. So, Sylvana, how are you over on Facebook Live? Thanks for joining. Now I've got to be very careful with, um, how far I go with this up to the skin. I want to get close, but I want to leave a little tiny bit of margin right in there. Just in case there's any bleeding at all. If there is, then I want to make sure that it's minimal. So I'm using the bark color from Inktense. So it's a very dark color, and if you want a comparison, when you add water to it, then you could think of it as sort of a dark Caput Mortem in the Polychromos line. You could think of it as Mars Violet in the Derwent Lightfast line. You could think of it as maybe like Dark Flesh in the new Luminance pencils. It has more of that lavender kind of tint to it, though. So it's a very nice, rich, um, dark lavender kind of color. Well, thank you, Sylvana. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Hope you guys can hear me okay. I got the mic like mounted up in the air here, and this is a close range uh, mic. it's a dynamic mic. It's one of those that uses vibration with a magnet around a coil to create the vibration on the diaphragm of the mic. So it doesn't use phantom power. There's no power to the mic at all. So the point is, you got to be real close to the microphone to speak into it. It's a podcaster's microphone, is what it is. Oh, thank you, Samia. If you can hear me well, then I'm not going to worry about it. That's good. All right. See if I can move this to my second camera here. Maybe I can zoom in just a little bit here. Or out if I need the difference. There we go. Maybe it won't seem so far away if I get a little bit closer there for you guys. All right. I think I need my larger brush up there. There we go. Hey, Shiny, how are you? Shiny is also out there on YouTube Live. Now, not all of the Inktense colors behave the same. So, what I mean is, some of them, uh, have that granulated kind of look when you add water. So, you're going to have a varying result from some of the Inktense colors. So, you'll want to, kind of play around with them and experiment. But you can layer, and so that's a nice thing about it. But we get this initial base on here, we can go on top of it with more color, and we can shift this a little bit more. Hey, Pam, how are you? Pam, you're not very much late. We just started. You're not too late, I should say. Okay. There we go. Hey, Jan, how's it going? Jan is over on Facebook. All right. I'm doing well, Jan. Thank you. Okay. I think I'll go over to the other side over here and we'll pick a color to use over there. I'm not going to use the same color. I could use the same color as my initial base, and then I could thin that out. Even if we went over it with a different color on top, using something that is quite a bit lighter, it would still I think it would still communicate just fine. I'm pausing because I'm thinking, in case anyone is wondering. I'm not sure yet what to do. So I'm playing around with some of the Inktense blocks in the pan set, just looking at them. Does anybody have this? Let me show you what I'm looking at. This pan set. It's kind of a fun thing to play with. It's comes in this little compact and it looks just like like a watercolor set. So okay, yeah, Pam, you better get that plugged in then. Let's see here. I think what I'll do is I'm gonna work on this shirt a little bit, and I'm gonna think a little bit more about um, what I want to do with the background on this other side. So I just want to start thinking about values and shadows on wrinkles and folds. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, Shiny. So you know what I'm talking about. It's a ton of fun. Yeah, it is. It's a good thing to use with colored pencil. as a good underpainting and go on top of it. It's a lot of fun. Just gives you very quick coverage when you're able to do that. Got a shirt collar right up under here. And for the most part, it's going to be in shadow. There'll be a little bit of texture that might be noticeable, but for the most part, it's just going to be very, very dark and won't be able to distinguish any texture really. I want to make sure that if I'm placing this glassine over here, that this isn't wet or that it's not, getting on my glassine paper. Um, but it doesn't appear to be, so should be all right. Now I can use solvent down here in the shirt if I wanted to. Even after, getting this particular color in here. I may do that, and that will help move things around quite a bit. A solvent performs quite differently on Pastelmat, quite differently than does water. So it has a tendency sometimes to bleed quite a bit. Water can do that too on Pastelmat. So you have to be aware of that, or aware of how the particular pencil you're using um, is going to behave with whatever medium you add to it. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll get some of this pigment down, and then I'll add some solvent just to spread it out a little bit and to get a base tone in here. I feel like there's something on my surface here. Oh, you guys probably can't see what I'm doing. Let me move over to the other camera. Now, this is one of the unique properties of Pastelmat and using solvent. Like, I can be just very sloppy, if you want to use that word, with the way that I put this down, and then I can come in there with solvent and move this around quite a bit just to get a base tone on the paper. All right, just adding some Gamsol. And it just creates this very fluid medium when it mixes with the colored pencil. And I can move it around quite a bit. So I'm using that Mars Violet, I believe it is. Yeah. And it just has this nice, deep, rich lavender kind of color. But as I thin it out over the surface here, it just creates this nice tone to the surface. Now there's actually a lot of solvent on here right now. Um, I'm kind of swimming in it right now. So I'm just kind of spreading it out, pushing it from one spot to the other. But I can go on top of this with my colored pencil, and it'll just kind of melt the pencil lead into the surface. It's kind of fun to do that. Okay. Get right over here to the edge of where this hand is and where the neck is. And we've got a very dark shadow under here. And in fact, this will become something that will be very indistinct from where the bottom of the neck is and where the shirt begins. I want that to be something where by the time we're done, we're not going to be able to tell where that is, where those two separations are. So Pam is asking, will the solvent warp the paper Bristol? Yeah, so if you're on Bristol Vellum, a Strathmore Bristol Vellum, Pam, trying to remember back when I used Bristol Vellum, I believe it does warp, if I'm not mistaken. If you have a whole lot of layers built up, and then you go on top and use a little bit, very sparingly, you might be able to get away with it without any warping at all. So, okay. But you know what you do, Pam? You probably already know this, but you test. You test on a separate sheet of paper so that you're not surprised and you're not shocked, you know, when you get on your project. Yeah, you always want to test. Testing is the name of the game. You might hear someone say, "Oh, this works great," you know, this is wonderful. Just like Shiny here, she's done it. I think I've done it in the past. But how many layers did we put down? How thick was our layers? You know, and were our layers, and you know, all of these little things matter, right? So you'll want to see what happens when you test that yourself. Okay. Yeah, so this is still wet. This is something I would not advise doing on any other surface, and I wouldn't even advise it on this surface if if you're somebody who presses down really hard. Because if you press down really hard, even on pastel mat, you can indent the paper, and then you've got a problem that you can't hardly get rid of. If you can use light enough touch, and I'm using the side of the pencil for the most part, and if you can use a light enough touch, you can get more pencil layers on top. It helps to overcome one of the biggest um, problems, or not problem, but one of the biggest um, time intensive jobs of a colored pencil artist, and that is to fill in the tooth of the paper. And so, if I'm able to do that effectively, it and cut my time, you know, sometimes in half, then I'm going to look for shortcuts on that. I'm going to look for ways of doing that. I want a shortcut, but I don't want a quality cut. And so I'm looking for ways of doing this without sacrificing the quality. These bottom layers, yes, they do influence layers on top, subsequent layers, but they don't influence it as much as what we sometimes believe when we, um, when we come from a paper that shows every little nook and cranny of the mark making that you've been doing on bottom layers. It just doesn't matter too much on this particular surface with the way that I'm able to build this up on top. Um, so far, maybe I should put that caveat in there. Pam says, or just use a different paper. Yeah, you kind of have to know your surfaces, right? You have to know the limitation of a surface, and you have to know what will happen when you do a particular thing. But how do you get to know that? How do you understand that? How is it revealed to you? Only through testing, only after you've experienced it and you tried it yourself. That's why it's good to try a variety of papers, have a variety of papers, and to experiment on them, try them, and see what works, and more importantly, see what doesn't work, and experiment and push it to the point of failure, push it to the point where it starts to create a mess. It's actually a good thing to do because then the extent that you can push something and do something um, to an extreme. And that's the reason why I know that Pastel Mat has a limit where if you press very hard, you can create an indentation in your paper and you can create this scoring mark in there that you cannot get rid of because I've done that. Actually, done it more than once. So, all right, we probably have enough solvent on this surface already that we can move this around um, even even now after we've added more layers on top. Let's see. Let's try it. Seems to be working. We'll come back up here to the shoulder. Get more of that area blended in. Now I'm using a little bit longer bristled brush this time, not that fix-it brush. This is a Scumbler, and because of that, um, I thought I would, if I use that shorter brush, I might have the tendency to try to push really hard, and I actually could damage the surface if I did that. So I want to be careful about that. Okay. It's starting to dry out a little bit, so I might need to add just a little bit more. It dries very quickly, really. Even with a lot of it on the surface, it's still drying out fairly rapidly. Put just a little bit more on there. That might be enough. I like to kind of dab it in a few different places, the solvent, when I put it on. So dab that brush in a few places and let it run a little, because I'm using an angled surface. I'm not drawing flat, and so it does run a little bit. But as long as I dab it in a few spots, then I can quickly start blending that in by moving the brush over those areas and working my way around the area that I applied it to the paper. Okay. Might need just a little bit more right over here. Doesn't seem to be moving a whole lot. And that's what you'll notice is when it stops moving around or becoming um, more fluid. Like you'll have this granular kind of look, this crayon kind of look on the surface. And just add a little bit more solvent and start applying that brush, moving it in um, several different strokes in the same area, back and forth, and it should smooth out some of that crayon kind of look on the surface. And that's what we're starting to see right now. So even over here. Now remember, over here it's going to be very dark. Right up here by the head and by the hand over here, it's going to be very, very dark. Nearly as dark as our Inktense bark over there. So the point is, I'm not going to worry a whole lot about some type of inconsistent look over here, because I have to remember the vision from the beginning or even in the middle, right? And I have to remember that some of this will be covered up with a darker value. So if that's the case, then I don't need to sit over here and try to smooth all of this out and worry about it. All right. Now, it probably does make more sense, though, to try to push this back this direction a little bit. Because that hand is not, it's not all the way, it's a shadow in here, but that hand is not all the way against the chest. It's coming away from the head. And so there's some light that will get underneath there a little bit. But right up under here, it's going to be very dark. Okay. I feel like we played around all night tonight here and didn't do a whole lot of drawing. So let me look here. See what we can do before we move along and stop tonight. I think what I'll do. So grab dark flesh. Put a little bit. Well, I need to sharpen it. A little bit right in there by the hand, just to reestablish this dark value here. Get that in here. Oh, hey, Cheryl. Cheryl's watching over on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining, Cheryl. So now if I can just reestablish that dark area, then as I move away from the dark area, I want to lighten up that pressure. There we go. Had to check that lead. Sometimes you're moving your pencil back and forth, and if you look at it too long, sometimes it can start to look like the pencil point is the point of the pencil is just wobbly, and it's just like this optical illusion that starts happening to yourself with looking at it. Um, I mean, not always. Sometimes it is actually broken, but it makes you think it's broken sometimes when it isn't. So sometimes it is broken. And the last thing you want to do is just start moving the pencil along and drawing along, and then all of a sudden, boom, it falls out and you hit your drawing and you make a mark that you don't want to in a light area, let's say. That would be awful. I've had that happen before, and it feels terrible. All right. Are you guys excited about next week? If you signed up for the 4-day live workshop, I am so excited about it. Hopefully, you got the materials list by now, and you got the reference photos also. So just be sure and get those printed. At least one of the reference photos printed before Monday. Have your pencils and your paper ready, because we're going to get right to work. Should be a lot of fun. All right, let me move this over just a little bit. Forgot I was still on that camera. Okay. Take a look here. All right. It's looking a little more orange tonight than it needs to in the skin. That's because we've got this purple color over here. So it's going to magnify that difference that we have going on there. So we have to remember that that's what's happening and not to let it bother us. Is you could come in here based on something that is intermittent, or something that is an interim situation, a temporary problem that you may have, and make some color choices based on that. And that would be a mistake to do that. I just want to lighten up this area right here. And add that highlight back in there. Just started feeling like it was disappearing a little bit. Okay. Probably won't be the last time we take a look at that. Make sure that it's noticeable. Okay. We are going to call it a night. So, you guys have a wonderful Friday night, and hope you have a great weekend. And I will talk to you soon. Some of you I know I will see on Monday. So, can't wait for that. And we'll talk to you then.